Dust clouds clung to the fading light as the stagecoach thundered down the main street of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Amid the swirling grit, a lone figure struggled through the crowd. A young woman with a pronounced limp clutching a small satchel as if it contained her entire world. Her name was Lily Moulton, a once proud cowgirl left disabled by a ranch accident that robbed her of both a steady livelihood and her confidence. Now hunger gnawed at her belly like a relentless buzzard, and whispers of her misfortune spread like prairie fire. Unbeknownst to her, a wealthy rancher observed from afar, compelled to act and to carry her to his heart. Lily Moulton grew up believing in the promise of the open range. As a child, she'd raced her brothers on horseback across the family's modest ranch near Fort Laramie, laughing at the wind that whipped her braids. She had even aspired to be one of the territory's finest ropers one day. But fate had other plans. One wrong step while breaking a young Mustang led to a vicious fall that crushed her lower leg. The doctor saved her life, but the injury left Lily with a permanent limp and a lingering ache that flared whenever she walked more than a few steps. Her father tried to keep the ranch going, but times were hard, and neighbors were swallowing up land with greater resources. Illness claimed him before Lily recovered. Then her two elder brothers struck out on their own, drifting to distant territories in search of gold or better ranch work. Alone and disabled. Lily found the ranch taxes too steep, the chores too overwhelming. She sold off what little remained, taking only her battered saddle, a few keepsakes, and a determination to survive. When Lily arrived in Cheyenne, she believed the city might offer a chance at honest work. Yet the bustling town provided little mercy. Employers saw her limp and turned her away. Her attempts to earn a living by sewing bridles or polishing saddles yielded meager coin. The nights were cold, her budget thinner than thread, and sometimes she went to sleep with nothing in her belly but the memory of better days. That afternoon, as she shuffled along the boardwalk, Lily tried to ignore the throbbing pain radiating from her hip down to her ankle. She'd heard that a wealthy rancher named Jefferson Wade was hiring for a new cattle drive, and she mustered the courage to inquire about stable work. Even sweeping stalls and grooming horses felt within her ability anything to keep from begging on the street. At the local saloon, rumors flew that Wade was unpredictable but fair. Some claimed he had come from old money in the East. Others said he'd built his empire from scratch. Lily just needed him to give her a chance. She limped through the swinging doors of the Gold Dust Saloon, the reek of whiskey and sweat smacking her in the face. Smoke drifted in lazy curls from men puffing on rolled cigarettes. A piano tinkled in the corner, while a poker game raged at a table ringed with dusty cowboys. Keeping her head low to avoid the leers and pitying glances, Lily approached the barkeep, a burly man with a mustache the size of a raccoon's tail. "I'm looking for Jefferson Wade," she said softly. He gave her a once-over. "Reckon you'll find him upstairs," he replied, jerking his thumb toward a narrow staircase. She offered a nod of thanks, her stomach churning with nerves. Every step up the stairs sent jolts of pain through her leg, but she clenched her jaw, refusing to let a whimper escape. At the top, she found a quieter parlor room. A tall man in a tailored coat stood near the window, gazing at the street below. His shoulders were broad, the posture of someone who rarely bent to others. Lily, breath tight, approached him. If this was Jefferson Wade, then her future, or at least her next meal, rested on whatever happened next. Lily cleared her throat. "Mr. Wade?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. He turned, revealing a face that combined ruggedness with a polished edge. A faint scar traced across his right cheek, suggesting a history beyond mere business deals. His eyes were the hue of stormy skies, sharp, observant, and at that moment focused wholly on her. "Yes," he replied, arching an eyebrow. She swallowed. "I heard you're hiring for a cattle drive. I'd like to ask for work, maybe stable duties or mending tack. I can do just about anything with horses, and I'm handy with rope." His gaze dipped to her left leg, taking note of her uneven stance. He said nothing, but Lily sensed the inevitable judgment. How many times had she seen that flicker of doubt? She rushed on, trying to mask her desperation. "I won't slow anyone down. You can pay me half of what you'd pay a healthy cowhand. Just give me a chance." A frown tugged at his lips. "Why do you want this so badly?" Her cheeks flushed. "Because I have nowhere else to turn. I'm not asking for pity, just an honest day's wage." Before he could answer, a commotion rose from below, the sound of breaking glass, angry voices. The bartender hollered for calm. Wade's jaw tightened. "Stay here," he ordered, striding toward the stairs. Ignoring the protest in her leg, Lily followed a few steps behind, unwilling to remain idle. On the saloon floor, they found an argument turned violent. Two rowdy drifters shoved one another, chairs toppled, and a corner table was in pieces. As the barkeep tried to intervene, one drifter drew a knife. Wade didn't hesitate. He rushed forward, grabbing the man's wrist, twisting until the blade clattered to the ground. The second drifter, staggering from too much whiskey, swung wildly. Lily's heart pounded. She felt an urge to help, but what could she do against grown men in a brawl? Wade deftly ducked the blow, delivering a punch to the assailant's jaw. The man crumpled like a rag doll. The barkeep pinned the knife wielder's arms from behind. In a matter of seconds, the chaos subsided, replaced by the labored breathing of men who'd had too much to drink and too little sense. During the scuffle, Lily inched forward, retrieving a bottle of whiskey that had rolled near her feet. She pressed it into the bartender's hand once the men were subdued. He gave her a grateful nod and turned to Wade. "You sure know how to handle yourself, Mr. Wade," he remarked, wiping sweat from his brow. Wade dusted off his coat. "Comes with the territory." He glanced over at Lily, noticing her stoic expression, her refusal to cower. A subtle respect flickered in his eyes. After the barkeep threatened to call the sheriff if the drifters didn't leave immediately, the saloon returned to a shaky normal. Wade signaled Lily to follow him outside, stepping onto the porch where the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dusty street. He turned to her, crossing his arms. "You've got grit, I'll give you that." She braced for rejection. "Meet me tomorrow, just after sunrise, behind the old feed store near the rail yard. I'll see what you can do with horses, if you can handle that you've got yourself a job." Lily's heart soared in relief. She managed a nod. "Thank you, Mr. Wade. I won't let you down." For the first time, his stern features softened. "Let's hope not," he said. "Because the frontier doesn't forgive weakness, and neither do I." Lily spent the night in a dilapidated boarding house at the edge of Cheyenne, paying for a single room with the last coin she had. She tried not to think about what would happen if Mr. Wade changed his mind come morning. Instead, she focused on the promise of a chance, a crack in the door of possibility. She curled under a threadbare blanket, her stomach growling. She'd eaten almost nothing that day, and the pangs of hunger gnawed at her. Memory danced cruelly before her, the warm smell of biscuits on her old ranch, the sizzling bacon her mother used to cook. But her mother was gone, taken by sickness when Lily was just a girl. Her father and the ranch had followed suit. Life, it seemed, was an endless cycle of losing what she cherished. Still, A flicker of hope glimmered in her chest at the thought of dawn. Sleep came in fits, haunted by dreams of horses galloping across open plains, and Lily trying desperately to keep pace with them on her injured leg. When the first rays of sun slid through her window, she forced herself up. Pain lanced her hip, but she gritted her teeth. She had no food for breakfast, so she drank what remained of her water and washed her face in the basin. Her reflection looked haggard, dark circles under her eyes, hair tangled around her shoulders. But there was determination, too. She limped through the streets, the day just waking. A few sleepy vendors opened their shops. A mangy dog rummaged through an overturned barrel. The feed store near the rail yard stood quiet. Its shutters closed, the pungent smell of grain drifting in the morning air. Behind it, she found a small corral. Jefferson Wade was already there, perched on a fence rail, arms folded across his broad chest. He tilted his hat in greeting. "I wasn't sure you'd show." "I said I would," she replied simply. A bit of her old confidence surfaced, despite her empty belly. She nodded to the horse in the corral, a large bay mare pawing at the dirt. "Is that the one you want me to handle?" He studied her, then dropped down from the fence. "She's skittish, came to me from a ranch in Montana. They claim she's unbreakable. Let's see what you can do." The challenge in his voice awakened something in Lily, an echo of the cowgirl she used to be. Despite her limp, she moved thankfully into the corral, murmuring soft words as she approached the mare. The horse's ears flicked eyes, rolling warily. Lily extended her hand, allowing the mare to catch her scent. Step by cautious step, she closed the distance. She felt Wade's gaze keen as a hawk's. Part of her was self-conscious about her gait, but she pushed the thought aside. Animals responded to calm confidence. She slowed her breathing, ignoring the ache in her leg, pouring all her focus into the connection with the skittish mare. Eventually, the horse let Lily stroke her neck, a moment of gentle victory. She reached for the bridle Wade had placed on the fence. With firm but kind hands, she attempted to slip it on. The mare jerked back once, but Lily persisted. Within minutes, the bridle was secure, and the horse's anxious steps eased. She turned to Wade, breath coming hard, but satisfaction rising in her chest. He gave a short nod, genuine respect shining in his eyes. "You're hired," he said. "Now let's see if you can ride her." Wade's words hung in the air, a daunting invitation. Could she ride again? Truly ride after her accident? Lily's heart pounded. Her last real attempt at riding ended in the fall that changed her life. And yet something in Wade's tone, a mixture of challenge and belief, fueled her determination. She steadied the mare, then guided her toward a makeshift mounting block near the fence. Carefully, Lily placed her foot in the stirrup. Pain flared in her leg, but she gritted her teeth and hoisted herself into the saddle. The mare snorted, sidestepping nervously. Wade watched every move, his gaze unwavering. "You all right?" he asked, tone gruff, but laced with concern. She nodded, adjusting her seat. Yes, she managed, though her leg protested. With a gentle click of her tongue, she nudged the mare forward. The horse's ears flicked uncertain, but Lily coaxed her into a slow walk around the perimeter of the corral. For a few minutes, Lily focused on rediscovering her balance in the saddle, testing the pain threshold in her leg. Despite the discomfort, an old exhilaration flickered. She remembered how she used to feel free on horseback, as though all the burdens of the world couldn't weigh her down. The mare tossed her head, but Lily soothed her with quiet words, guiding her in a careful circle. Wade stepped closer to the fence. "Pick up a trot," he directed. A surge of anxiety gripped Lily's gut, but she pressed her heels lightly against the mare's sides. The horse lurched into a shaky trot, jostling Lily's weakened leg. Her thigh burned, and her grip on the reins tightened. But she didn't relent. After a few uneven strides, the mare settled into a more fluid motion, and Lily found a rhythm, though not without grimacing at each jolt. Finally, she slowed the mare to a halt. Her breath came quick sweat beading on her brow. Wade approached, looking up at her with a thoughtful expression. "You did well," he said. "Better than some of my able-bodied hires." Pride and relief mingled in Lily's chest. She dismounted carefully, leaning on the mare's flank to steady herself. Her leg felt like it might buckle, but she forced it to hold. Wade offered an arm to support her, and she accepted for just a moment, sensing a warmth in his presence that extended beyond mere politeness. He cleared his throat, stepping back as if catching himself. "We'll start you with stable work, and see how you handle the horses day to day," he said. "I'm moving a new herd to my ranch outside of town. You can ride with my men in the wagon train. Pay is fair, and I provide room and board." Gratitude washed over Lily, her voice nearly failing. "Thank you, Mr. Wade. You won't regret it." "Call me Jefferson," he responded. "Or Jeff, my friends do." She tried to conceal her flush of relief. "Then thank you, Jeff." He tipped his hat in acknowledgement. "I'll send one of my hands to fetch you tomorrow. We'll head out at sunrise." She nodded, heart pounding. She had a job, a chance to eat without begging and to reclaim some piece of her old self. Yet as Wade walked away, Lily couldn't help but feel that this was more than just a job. Something about the intensity in his eyes told her that their fates had just become entwined in ways neither fully understood. True to his word, Jefferson sent one of his ranch hands the next morning, an older cowboy named Carlos, with silver strands in his hair and an easy smile. Carlos helped Lily load what little she owned into a covered wagon. She noticed him glancing at her leg, but he made no comments or pitying remarks. Instead, he offered her a small pouch of jerky. "You'll need strength for the journey," he said. "We've got a couple of hours' ride to the Wade Ranch." She accepted gratefully, her stomach rumbling. The jerky was salty but tasted heavenly to someone who'd gone hungry so often. With that modest meal, she climbed aboard, seated beside Carlos, and they set off through Cheyenne's dusty streets, passing the train station and a row of supply shops. Soon the town gave way to rolling plains and the shimmering green of distant meadows. Behind them rode a small crew of cowboys, guiding a line of wagons, carrying supplies, and newly purchased horses. Lily recognized some from the saloon, but none seemed inclined to talk. The wide-open sky loomed overhead, the sun bright and warm, a breeze carrying the scent of sagebrush. The rhythmic clip-clop of hooves lulled Lily into a strange calm. She might have found it peaceful, if not for the dull ache in her thigh. "So you handled that bay mare real nice," Carlos commented, after a while, snapping the reins to keep the team moving. Lily recalled the tense moments in the saddle. "Thank you." It felt good to be back on a horse, she admitted. He nodded knowingly. "Word is you're a fine cowgirl. Mr. Wade's got an eye for talent. He sure wasn't expecting you to ride like that, I bet." Lily's cheeks warmed. Part of her bristled at the suggestion she was being judged by her disability, but at least Carlos didn't seem critical. She adjusted her position, trying to ease the pressure on her leg. "Well, I hope I can prove useful around the ranch." "Oh, you will," Carlos assured. "The ranch is big. Jefferson inherited part of it from his father, then expanded. Some say he's got more ambition than a gold prospector in the Sierra Nevadas." He paused, glancing at her. "He can be stern, but he's fair. Just don't cross him." Lily nodded, remembering the fight in the saloon. She couldn't picture Jefferson as a cruel man, but she sensed a certain guarded nature. Perhaps success in these wild lands demanded a stiff backbone. She silently vowed not to disappoint him. By midday, the group entered a wide valley flanked by gentle hills. At its center sprawled the Wade Ranch, a large, well-maintained homestead with a sturdy barn, several corrals, and a stately two-story house perched slightly above the surrounding fields. White fences glistened in the sun, and Lily spotted a windmill turning lazily in the breeze. Her pulse quickened. This place looked prosperous, far from the run-down ranch where she'd grown up. She wondered if she could truly belong here. As the wagon pulled up to the main house, Lily saw Jefferson emerge, barking instructions to a pair of ranch hands. He turned his head and spotted her wagon, a faint smile curving his lips. Welcoming or not, this was her new beginning. Lily swallowed her nerves, bracing herself for the biggest challenge of her life, proving that a crippled cowgirl still had enough grit to thrive in the harsh realities of the West. Jefferson Wade instructed 2 hired hands to help unload supplies, while Lily and Carlos guided the wagon toward the barn. The structure towered over them, its red paint fresh, and the sweet smell of hay drifted through the air. A row of empty stalls awaited the newly purchased horses. Beyond the barn, Lily glimpsed fenced pastures where a few cattle grazed. She climbed down from the wagon, her leg throbbing from the journey. Still, she set to work, transferring sacks of grain to storage. While she lugged a particularly heavy sack, a wave of dizziness hit. She hadn't eaten a real meal in days, and the physical exertion took its toll. "Whoa, easy there," came Jefferson's voice. He swiftly closed the distance, taking the sack from her arms. Lily's pride prickled at the idea of him thinking she was fragile, but her body was in no position to argue. She leaned against the barn wall, panting. "I can handle it," she insisted, her voice weaker than she'd like. He eyed her carefully. "I've seen you're capable. But even the strongest hand needs fuel. Have you eaten today?" She hesitated, unsure whether to lie. Before she could respond, he called over to a ranch cook. "Dottie, fetch some bread and stew, would you?" Within minutes, Dottie, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, appeared carrying a steaming bowl of stew and a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. She offered Lily a gentle smile. "Let's get some color back in those cheeks, child." Grateful beyond words, Lily accepted the meal, sinking onto a bench near the barn door. She sipped the stew, savoring the warmth flooding her stomach. When she glanced up, she found Jefferson observing her with a mix of concern and something else she couldn't quite name. She broke a piece of bread, her embarrassment overshadowed by sheer hunger. "Thank you," she finally managed, voice trembling. He nodded curtly. "A hungry worker's no good to anyone," he said, then moved off to oversee the unloading boots thudding on the barn's wooden floor. After her stomach felt less hollow, Lily forced herself back into action. She joined Dottie in the kitchen area, helping store some newly arrived supplies. Dottie, talkative and motherly, quickly learned Lily's story, or at least the gist of it. Lily felt a mix of relief and vulnerability in confiding about her old ranch and her injured leg. "Honey, you do what you can," Dottie said, patting Lily's hand. "Mr. Wade's demanding, but I've never seen him turn his back on someone trying to do an honest day's work. He might even surprise you." Lily wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but she appreciated the encouragement. As the day wore on, she settled into a rhythm, assisting with feedings, checking tack in the barn, and directing stable chores. Whenever possible, she avoided carrying overly heavy loads, mindful that her leg was still unsteady. She refused to appear weak, but also realized pushing herself too hard could lead to another injury. That evening, after chores concluded, Lily limped outside to admire the sunset spreading across the horizon in a blaze of oranges and reds. The crisp air caressed her flushed cheeks. She felt content, though her muscles ached. Leaning against a fence post, she closed her eyes, letting the cool breeze soothe her. When she opened them, Jefferson stood a few yards away, his arms crossed. He said nothing for a moment, just watched the sky. Then he spoke softly. "You did good today. Keep at it." A faint warmth filled Lily's chest. It wasn't effusive praise, but it felt genuine. And from Jefferson Wade, that meant something. She wondered what lingered beneath his stoic exterior, and whether she'd ever have the chance to find out. The following days tested Lily's resolve. With the ranch bustling herds, arriving fences needing repair, and a trail ride planned, she had little time to dwell on her discomfort. Carlos and a younger hand named Tommy taught her the ranch layout, which pastures were for cattle, where the spring-fed creek ran, and the shortcuts across rocky terrain. During one afternoon, Jefferson announced they'd be moving a group of young horses from a distant corral to the main ranch. He wanted Lily to ride along, assess the horses' temperaments, and help direct them. The assignment thrilled and terrified her. She hadn't done real herd work since her accident. Carlos loaned her his sturdy quarter horse, a gentle gelding named Rusty. Saddling Rusty was challenging enough with her legs' limited strength, but once mounted, Lily felt a blend of anxiety and exhilaration. Jefferson gave her an impassive nod, then spurred his own sleek bay stallion forward. The rest of the group followed, weaving across the ranch's rolling fields. The sun climbed high as they reached the corral. Within a dozen horses milled about, ears flicking nervously at the approaching riders. Jefferson dismounted, gesturing for Lily to help coax the animals out in small groups. They planned to drive them over a gentle ridge and into the ranch's main enclosure. That moment, stepping onto her feet again, Lily's leg nearly buckled. She stumbled. Instantly, Jefferson's hand was at her elbow, steadying her. A flicker of concern passed across his face. "You all right?" She pulled away, cheeks burning. "I'm fine. Just a misstep." He didn't press further, but lingered an extra moment, as though ensuring she was truly steady. Lily took a breath to calm her racing heart and focused on the horses. One by one, she and Carlos opened the gate, allowing small groups of mares and geldings to trot out into the open range. The real challenge was to keep them together en route. Lily swung back into Rusty's saddle, biting back a grimace as her leg twinged. Jefferson led the herd forward. Lily rode alongside, calling out softly to stragglers, guiding them to stay with the group. Her limp was inconsequential while mounted, but the memory of her accident lurked in the back of her mind. She forced it away, no time for fear now. A chestnut mare spooked at a passing shadow bolting from the herd. Lily spotted the mare sprinting toward a rocky creek bed. Without hesitation, Lily nudged Rusty into a canter, ignoring the stab of pain in her thigh. She pressed her weight into the stirrups, trying to keep balance. The chestnut was agile, dodging around boulders and clumps of brush. "Steady, Rusty," Lily murmured, guiding the horse in pursuit. She knew if the mare got lost in the thicket, they could be searching for hours. Gritting her teeth, she urged Rusty faster. A leap over a small wash threatened to unseat her, but Lily clung to the saddle horn. Her heart hammered with both terror and exhilaration. Finally, she angled Rusty ahead, cutting off the chestnut mare's path. The startled animal skidded to a halt, nostrils flaring. Lily spoke in a calm, low tone, reaching out to soothe the mare's neck. Perspiration glistened on both their hides under the blazing sun. After a tense moment, the mare calmed enough to be led back. They rejoined the herd, Lily's pulse still racing. Jefferson, who had been riding flank, approached. His face held a mix of surprise and grudging admiration. "Quick work," he remarked. "You all right?" She nodded, though her leg screamed in protest. I'm good." He gave a short, approving nod and returned to manage the rest of the herd. Lily exhaled, swallowing against the pain, pride swelling. Despite everything she'd proven, she could still ride, still contribute. Maybe she'd finally shed the label of crippled. However, the day wasn't over. She'd soon learn that the wide skies of the West harbored dangers beyond mere unruly horses, and that she and Jefferson would be tested in ways neither expected. Near dusk, the herd safely corralled. Jefferson beckoned Lily aside. They stood by the fence, the sky aflame with the colors of twilight. The rest of the cowhands drifted off to tend various chores or grab supper. Lily leaned wearily against the railing, her leg throbbing in dull pulses. "I need to discuss something with you," Jefferson said, voice low. He scanned the ranch yard as though ensuring no one eavesdropped. "Have you heard of the Henderson gang?" Lily's brow furrowed. "I've heard rumors, robberies and rustling around these parts." He nodded. "They've been hitting ranches lately, stealing cattle or horses, sometimes roughing up the owners. I got word they might be targeting my place next. Heard they're holed up somewhere near the outskirts of Cheyenne, waiting for the right moment." A chill swept through her. The frontier's lawlessness was no secret, but the thought of rustlers descending on the ranch rattled her. "What are you planning to do?" Jefferson's jaw set in a hard line. "I've hired a few extra men to keep watch, but if they're brazen enough, we might see a confrontation." He paused, his gaze flicking to Lily's leg. "I want you to keep your head down. You've proven yourself with horses, but this might get ugly." She bristled slightly. "I'm not helpless." "I know," he replied softly, "but I refuse to have you in the line of fire. Not when I can handle this." His eyes held an unspoken worry, one that made Lily's heart flutter in an unfamiliar way. Before she could argue further, Dottie rang the dinner bell. Jefferson took a step back, clearing his throat. "We'll talk more later," he said, then strolled toward the house. Lily lingered a moment, unsettled by the prospect of armed thieves on the ranch and by the flicker of protectiveness in Jefferson's voice. A part of her warmed to the notion that he cared for her well-being. Another part, fiercely independent, bristled at the idea of being sidelined. That night, Lily sat at the long ranch table, with the other hands devouring hearty stew bread and beans. Jefferson ate at one end, mostly quiet, except when discussing ranch matters with Carlos. After dinner, Lily volunteered to help Dottie wash dishes, using the menial task to keep her mind off the Henderson gang. The house felt cozy, solid halls, warm lighting from oil lamps, the chatter of cowboys, so different from her lonely nights in cheap boarding rooms. Later, Lily ventured outside to get some air. She spied Jefferson standing near the barn, gazing at the stars. Steeling herself, she approached him. "I'm not good at playing it safe," she said softly. "If something happens, if the gang comes, I can help. I can shoot. I can ride." He turned, eyes reflecting the moonlight. "I've seen your skill, but this is my fight. I won't put you at risk." Anger and admiration mixed in her heart. "You're putting yourself at risk," she countered. "Do you expect me to sit idle while men steal your horses, rustle your cattle?" His lips tightened, as though he wanted to disagree, but couldn't fully dismiss her. Eventually, he let out a low sigh. "All right, Lily, but promise me this: if the bullets start flying, you keep out of sight unless it's absolutely necessary." She hesitated, then nodded. "Fair enough." An unspoken understanding passed between them, an alliance forged in mutual respect and laced with something deeper. As Lily limped back toward her bunk, she couldn't help but sense that forces beyond rustlers and rowdy horses were at play. She wondered if her life's battered trajectory had led her here for more than just a job. Days went by with heightened vigilance. Lily found herself increasingly torn between the practical demands of ranch chores and the simmering tension of a possible attack. Jefferson's men patrolled the perimeter, while she helped with feeding and grooming, staying prepared for any emergency. Whispers swirled among the ranch hands. Some claimed the Henderson gang had been spotted on a neighboring spread. Others reported sightings near the old canyon road. Lily's leg throbbed continuously from all the work, but she refused to complain. She took solace in the camaraderie of the ranch Carlos's jokes, Dottie's motherly scolding to sit down and eat more, and the respectful nods from cowhands acknowledging her proven mettle. Through it all, she caught glimpses of Jefferson's protective watchfulness. One evening, after most of the ranch had settled, Lily decided to ride Rusty just a short distance to check on a remote pasture gate. She'd volunteered for the task to clear her mind under the twilight sky. The air was crisp stars just beginning to shimmer. She carried a small lantern for light strapped to her saddle. She reached the gate without incident, found it secure, and turned back. Rusty trotted along the trail, the flickering lantern casting dancing shadows on the ground. That's when she caught a glimpse of movement in the distance, 3 mounted figures emerging from a stand of cottonwoods. Her heart lurched. The ranch was still a fair distance away, and these men looked anything but friendly. They wheeled around to face her, their silhouettes outlined by the lantern's glow. She heard a low curse in the air. Without hesitation, Lily urged Rusty into a canter. Shouts erupted behind her, and the pounding of hooves followed. The Henderson gang was here, or at least some of them. Fear clamored in her chest. She was alone, outrun by men whose reputations for brutality were well known. But Lily refused to be a helpless victim. She reached for the small revolver strapped to her belt. The memory of her father's lessons on shooting from horseback flashed in her mind. She twisted in the saddle, balancing precariously on her injured leg, and fired a warning shot into the air. The pursuers hesitated briefly, but pressed on, determined. Rusty galloped hard, the ranch lights glimmering in the distance like a beacon. Another shot rang out, this time from the gang's side. A bullet whizzed past, sending Rusty into a frightful leap. Lily nearly lost her seat pain, spearing her leg. Teeth clenched, she forced Rusty to keep running. At last, she saw the ranch yard. She shouted for help, voice hoarse with panic. Carlos and 2 other ranch hands burst from the bunkhouse, rifles in hand. Jefferson appeared from the main house, also armed. Lily thundered in Rusty's flanks, lathered with sweat. The Henderson riders skidded to a halt just beyond the yard, uncertain now that they faced multiple armed defenders. Jefferson aimed his rifle eyes blazing. "Not on my land," he bellowed. Shots rang out. The night erupted in gunfire. Lily slid from the saddle, collapsing onto one knee, the impact sending a flash of agony through her leg. She steadied her revolver, firing at the shadowy figures. One cried out, toppling from his horse. The others cursed, returning fire. Amid the chaos, Lily spotted a rider leveling a revolver at Jefferson. Heart pounding, she raised her own gun. The memory of her father's instructions guided her breath. She squeezed the trigger. The rider jerked, dropping his weapon. Another volley of shots, and the gang, outnumbered, spurred their horses away, howling threats. As the dust settled and the echo of gunfire faded, Lily exhaled shakily. Her leg throbbed like fire, but she forced herself upright. Carlos rushed over to check for injuries, while Jefferson stormed after the retreating attackers until he was sure they were gone. Moments later, Jefferson returned, his face pale and furious. His gaze locked onto Lily, and without warning, he pulled her into an embrace so intense it stole her breath. "You saved my life," he whispered, voice trembling with adrenaline. She clung to him, heart pounding in her chest, tears pricking her eyes. In that moment, all that existed was the warmth of his arms, and the wild realization that her new life on this ranch was bound to him in a way she'd never expected. After the Henderson gang's attack, the ranch erupted into controlled chaos. Everyone was on edge, worried about a second raid. Jefferson doubled patrols and spent hours poring over maps, strategizing defenses. The bullet-riddled fences testified to just how close the battle had come. A stable hand discovered one of the gang's fallen men had crawled away, leaving a trail of blood near the western boundary. Clear proof they'd inflicted injuries, but no one knew how severe. Lily, meanwhile, battled a fresh wave of pain in her leg. The sudden dismount and the frantic run left her thigh swollen and bruised. Dottie insisted she rest inside the house for a day, a suggestion Lily only reluctantly accepted. She hated feeling weak, especially when tension vibrated through the ranch like a drawn bowstring. Late in the afternoon, Jefferson knocked on the door to the small guest room where Lily lay. She sat up, heart skittering. He carried a plate of food-bred cheese and slices of ham, along with a steaming mug of tea. She tried to hide her surprise. "Dottie thought you might eat more if you didn't have to hobble to the table," he said, setting the plate on a small nightstand. "Thank you," she murmured, flexing her leg. "You're right, I can barely walk." He folded his arms, lingering in the doorway. "I rode out this morning to see if the gang left tracks. Looks like they headed north, maybe to regroup. We'll stay vigilant." She nodded, studying his face. Fatigue etched faint lines at his temples, and he hadn't bothered to shave the stubble. The sight of him worn and determined tugged at her heart in a way she couldn't quite verbalize. "Jeff, can I ask you something?" she ventured. He inclined his head. "Of course." Her voice wavered. "Why are you so determined? I mean, protecting the ranch is obvious, but you seem like there's more driving you." He sighed, stepping farther into the room. Posture rigid. "I've worked hard to build this place. It was just a modest spread when I took over. Everything I've achieved, every fence post and head of cattle represents my life's effort. I refuse to let a gang of thieves rip that away." He paused, meeting her eyes. "And I hate bullies. My father was once roughed up by men who thought they had more right to our land than we did." Lily's chest tightened with empathy. "I understand. My ranch, we lost it to circumstances we couldn't control." He sat on the edge of a sturdy wooden chair, as though his legs finally gave him permission to rest. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. Life out here can be cruel." For a moment, their gazes locked, sharing a silent acceptance of the West's harsh realities. Then he cleared his throat. "Now about your leg. I want to bring the doctor from Cheyenne, make sure you didn't tear anything." She bristled, reluctant to accept more help. "I can't afford a doctor." He waved the protest aside. "It's on me. You saved my life. That's worth far more than a doctor's fee." A knot of gratitude rose in her throat. She wanted to argue that she'd only done what any friend would do, but the word friend felt too small for what she was beginning to feel. Instead, she said softly, "Thank you, Jeff." He stood the moment's intimacy too heavy to sustain. "Rest, Lily. Tomorrow, if the doc says you can move around, we'll figure out your chores." He offered her a faint smile, then left his boots echoing on the hallway floor. Alone, Lily sipped the tea. An ache deeper than physical pain pulsed in her soul. She realized she'd found a home here for the first time since her father's death, and with that came an emotion even stronger than gratitude. Her heart quickened at the thought of Jefferson Wade, the man who carried her to safety in more ways than one. Dr. Hargrove arrived the next day, an older gentleman from Cheyenne, with a wiry build and a no-nonsense demeanor. He examined Lily's leg in the privacy of the guest room, while she winced at every prod and poke. With a sympathetic grunt, he pronounced that no bones were broken, but that she'd badly strained muscles and ligaments around her old injury. "You need to take it easy," he warned. "Use a crutch for a while. If you push too hard, you risk permanent damage." Her shoulders sagged. "But I have chores," Dr. Hargrove frowned. "You won't be doing anyone favors if you cripple yourself worse. Heed my advice." When Jefferson came to check on the diagnosis, Lily braced for an argument. She expected him to demand she stay in bed useless to the ranch. Instead, he nodded gravely at Dr. Hargrove's instructions and turned to Lily. "We'll shift your duties. You can help with books and records inside for a spell, or do what you can in the barn without standing too long." A swirl of relief and frustration tangled in her heart. She hated the idea of being sidelined, yet she couldn't ignore her body's limitations. Grudgingly, she agreed, and Dr. Hargrove departed with a reminder to follow his prescriptions. Over the next week, Lily adjusted to a new routine. She found herself in Jefferson's study, a room she hadn't entered before walls lined with ledgers, a large oak desk, and windows overlooking the ranch yard. He showed her how to record cattle counts, supply orders, and payroll. Numbers danced on the page, but Lily found a sort of calming rhythm in organizing the ranch's finances. Jefferson would check in periodically, offering corrections or clarifications. Sometimes he'd linger, and they'd talk about everything from horse breeds to wild frontier tales. In these quieter moments, Lily discovered more about his past, how his father's failing health forced Jefferson to take over at a young age, how he traveled to eastern cities to learn business techniques, and how he always yearned to return to the open range. One late afternoon, they found themselves both hunched over the main ledger, verifying a shipment of fencing materials. Outside, the sun cast golden rays across the yard. Lily stretched her leg, propped on a stool. "Didn't realize running a ranch required so many numbers," she said wryly. Jefferson chuckled a rare sound. "You thought it was all saddles and stampedes?" She shrugged with a playful grin. "Something like that." Their eyes locked. The warm hush of the study enveloped them. Then, to Lily's surprise, Jefferson's hand brushed hers, calloused fingers tentative on her skin. His voice dropped. "Lily, about that night when you saved me." A knock at the door shattered the moment. Carlos stuck his head in, apologetic. "Mr. Wade, we need you in the south pasture. One of the steers is caught in a ditch." Jefferson stood abruptly, clearing his throat. "I'll be right there." He glanced at Lily, an unspoken message in his eyes. Unfinished business, perhaps. Then he left boots echoing in the hallway. Alone, Lily pressed her palm where his hand had touched. Her heart pounded. She realized the lines between employer and employee had blurred, replaced by unspoken feelings. Yet the harshness of the frontier and the looming threat of the Henderson gang weighed on them both like a storm gathering at the horizon. Could their fragile bond withstand what was coming next? The days stretched into weeks, and Lily's leg gradually mended enough for her to walk without the crutch. She still limped, but the pain was more manageable. The ranch thrived under Jefferson's leadership. Cattle fattened on lush pastures. Horses roamed safe behind fortified fences, and the Henderson gang seemed to vanish after their failed raid. Yet Lily sensed tension. Jefferson rode out often, sometimes returning late, always with a haunted flicker in his gaze. Rumor among the ranch hands suggested he was tracking the gang's movements, ensuring they wouldn't strike again. Meanwhile, Lily continued her new mix of chores, light stable duties paperwork, and the occasional short ride. She missed the thrill of galloping across open fields, but her leg demanded patience. One crisp morning, Jefferson asked Lily to accompany him on a short ride around the ranch boundary. He claimed he wanted her opinion on some new fence lines. She suspected he simply wanted her by his side. With cautious hope fluttering in her chest, she agreed. They set out each on their own horse, trotting through gentle hills where autumn leaves rustled in the breeze. They arrived at a vantage point overlooking the entire valley. Lily gasped at the sight the ranch sprawled below, like a painting of prosperity and peace. The winding creek shimmering, the homestead's roof catching the morning sun. "This is beautiful," she whispered. Jefferson nodded, dismounting. "I come here when I need to think. It reminds me why I work so hard." She slid off her horse, leaning heavily on the saddle for balance. He offered his arm, steadying her, and she hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. A gentle warmth spread through her. They walked a short distance, gazing out over the land. After a silence, Jefferson spoke. "I never planned on all this. Not just the ranch, but wanting to protect someone more than my own neck." He turned to face her features taut with vulnerability. "When I saw that Henderson thug line up a shot at me and you stepped in, it made me realize how much you matter." Her heart hammered. She felt tears prick her eyes, but she fought them back. "You've given me a home, Jeff. A reason to keep going. I was starving when I came here, not just for food, but for hope. You gave me that." He inhaled shakily. Then, in a motion that felt both tender and urgent, he cupped her cheek. "I can't say if life will get easier. We're in the West, where danger lurks behind every hill. But if you'll have me. Lily, I'd like you by my side on this ranch in my life." Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. "I want that too," she managed. Words felt too small to hold the depth of her gratitude, admiration, and nascent love for this man who saw past her limp to the strong spirit within. With that, Jefferson drew her into his arms and kissed her, the prairie wind sweeping around them as though nature itself offered its blessing. In that moment, Lily felt truly whole, her injured leg and battered pride forgotten. She had found her place and her person. They lingered on that ridge, hearts brimming with the knowledge that while the frontier remained wild and unpredictable, they had each other. No matter what storms came, Jefferson would carry her burdens just as she'd saved him from the bullet's path. Together they were stronger, forging a bond that not even the harsh West could break. That's the story of Lily Moulton, a spirited cowgirl who hobbled into Cheyenne with nothing but resolve, and of Jefferson Wade, a man whose wealth couldn't shield him from loneliness until Lily arrived. In a land of broad horizons and hidden dangers, these two souls found strength in each other. Lily overcame her disability by pushing past every limit, armed with tenacity and an unwavering love for the range. Jefferson discovered that real riches aren't measured in cattle or gold, but in the willingness to protect someone else's heart as fiercely as his own. If this tale of courage, resilience, and hard-won romance touched you, please show your support. Like this video, share it with those who love a powerful Western drama, and subscribe to this channel for more captivating stories. Every click helps keep these frontier adventures alive, reminding us that hope always blooms even in the wildest corners of the West. Thank you for riding along.